Jasmine!
Hi, can you hear
Hey,
me?
I can hear you. Can
Okay.
everyone hear each other? Us? Are we good? Because we had some sound trouble earlier today, so we were just making sure. Hi, everyone. Hi, Hetty. Cool. This is great. I like that we have this pink thing going on, right?
Yeah.
Very on brand for us. So how's it
All right.
going?
I'm good. I'm good. I was like, I don't know, looking forward to this moment like all morning. So
Yeah, same.
yeah.
It kind of this morning went by very quickly, obviously, just like
Yeah, it
watching
did.
everyone's stories and following and like jumping in, and so
Yeah,
it's been
yeah.
really cool. So, where are you? Let's tell everyone where you are and who
Yeah,
you are.
so I'm in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania right now, which is known as Mr. Rogers' neighborhood. So
Oh, I love that.
yeah. So that's where I'm
And
at.
who are you? You are.
So my name is Jasmine Cho, and I tell everyone that I am a baker turned artist turned cookie activist.
That is
Yeah.
perfect. Well, so I'll tell everyone. So I found you through the gram, of course. Thank you, Instagram. And you had this phenomenal animation of Christine Sun Kim, who was the first deaf Asian American to sign the Super Bowl, the national anthem, correct?
Right, right.
Yeah, so that was like huge for me. I shared that with my team immediately. First off, I love that you're a Korean American. I love that you're a baker. You totally took your art and turned it into like a food thing. So, what is a cookie activist?
So basically, I use my platform, which what I ended up doing is create an online bakery called Yummy Holic back in
Ooh.
2015 in the fall. And I started off when a friend of mine asked me to if I could put her face on a cookie. And that was how I first got into portrait cookies. And as soon as I posted them on social media, they just kind of went viral. And so I recognized that I had like this, it felt like I suddenly fell upon this superpower of capturing people's attention really effectively. So that's how I felt like I kind of stumbled into this platform of, having a means to connect people to uh, issues and matters that were really important to me. So if they were going to look at my cookies anyway, I wanted them to look at faces that I felt were largely underrepresented or even misrepresented in the media, in our textbooks. So that's sort of how I eventually became a cookie activist, because I kept using my cookie art to share stories about really Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders who I wish I had learned about while growing up, being born and raised in this country.
That's amazing. Yeah, because we've been throwing that term around ever since we found you. We were like, oh, we have to get the cookie activists, have to that. So that's a really cool
That's awesome.
term that you like penned for yourself. And so have you talked to Christine about the project and everything?
I haven't really like fully conversed with her, but she reached out to me immediately on Instagram too, as soon as she saw the cookies. And I think her comment was like OMFG or something like that. And she was like freaking out and super excited. She shared it all over her social media too. So I was super excited because it's actually a little rarer for me to connect with the people who I'm depicting on my cookies. So whenever those rare moments happen, I get super excited. So
Yeah.
especially for her to approve, and she was like super stoked. So
Bless the
yes.
So you have a pretty extensive background in baking and cookie making? Like how did you
um
get involved with that?
Yeah, I'm actually completely self-taught. It was a hobby of mine since high school, like my sophomore year. I actually learned how to bake from my best friend at the time, whose mother had taught her. She was over my house for a sleepover, and she noticed I had all these cookbooks, and she's like, "Hey, we should make this." And it happened to be like a recipe for pineapple coconut squares, and
Ooh,
I
that sounds
just,
good.
yeah, it was so good. And I just remember thinking like, "Oh my gosh, this is so awesome," because I always loved to eat sweets and desserts. And
Yeah.
once I learned how to make it, it was just like so magical for me. And I remember
Yeah.
that was a point where I started dreaming of having my own pastry cafe one day. But I guess this is what it comes to now. Yeah. Cookie
And
activism.
then just especially with social media itself, how quickly the reach goes, you know, because
Yeah.
I, of course, was also so angry that Christine didn't get any like screen time. And
Right.
so I really love that you were able to use Instagram and your animation to like really pull that all together. 'Cause that,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know, because without, you know, social media, Fox wasn't going to give her the screen time, you
I
know, so it's
know.
really cool that you were able to highlight her.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I mean, it's really cool that I mean, I got even more connected to her story through her op-ed in the New York Times
Yeah.
because I'm not really into sports but like her, she's a big deal and like I was very interested in her story and her op-ed was what really moved me even more to actually work on this animation. And
Mhm.
I remember her words were along the lines of how her, you know, she was really conflicted with even saying yes to this, to that opportunity because just everyone's in different like channels of protesting right now, but she felt that for her to accept that and to put herself out there to represent, you know, the deaf community, the Asian American community, that it was both an act of protest and patriotism, and that was just really touching for me. And I wanted her performance to just reach more people, at least through my means, which was cookies. So.
Exactly. Yeah, so let me show you. I have this nice feature on live that if this allows me, I can show. So this
Oh,
is
awesome.
her cookie animation on her Instagram. It's Jasmine M. Cho. And so you can see, go to her page and look at her animation. It's incredible. How many cookies did you end up doing?
That was 45 cookies, and I actually have a few with me
You
right now
do.
still. Like, I don't know if you could see. So they're kind of,
Oh.
they're smaller than like some of my other portrait cookies I do,
Mhm.
but I think this sign right here, what she's doing is doing this was with an ASL. So yeah, I made 45 cookies total for that
All right.
animation.
So what did you do with the cookies when you were done with them?
Yeah, so with the 45 cookies, I ended up framing them in a couple different sets. I think I had 4 framed cookie art pieces all together. And I reached out to my friend who also identifies as Asian American and deaf. And I realized that she was a teacher at our local school for the deaf, WPSA, which is the Western Pennsylvania School for the Deaf.
Wow.
And I was like, I really want to give these cookies to a good place. And she said, yes, please bring them to our school. And it was this whole day where they toured me around their huge campus. It's like a college campus, but they teach, I mean, even from, they work with families from prenatal all the way through high school. And it's just, it was really amazing. And they're going to be posting it in their school and hopefully share her story more and my story even. So
Yeah.
yeah, and like I wanted to mention too, it was really eye-opening because Pittsburgh is not really known for its diversity. It's
Yeah.
primarily a black and white city, and Asian Americans are also kind of like a minority of minorities here demographically. But there's the School for the Deaf here. They mentioned that at one point their demographics, I think last year, was up to 19% Asian Americans. So it was even more meaningful
Yeah.
for me to represent, you know, just to be in their school and then to show Christine's and Kim's work as well. So
That's
it was
incredible.
great.
Oh, that makes me feel so good. I'm so glad that you're here.
Yeah.
So, can you tell me a little bit? Do you have like an art background? Have you always had that talent?
Yeah, that it's so funny too because I was never like consciously thinking about this, but I love drawing too ever since I was a kid. I remember, I think that was my first childhood dream was to be an artist, but you know, like most immigrant families or whatever, my dad was like, no, be a doctor or a lawyer. Like, don't be the starving artist. And so I know I was like quickly dissuaded from it, but I do know it was a big hobby of mine, and I leaned toward drawing portraits a lot. Like I was born and raised in LA, so I had a lot of access to Korean things, you know, including K-pop magazines.
Very
So I
nice.
remember like buying those and like always trying to redraw their portraits. So I think I was always drawn to that sense of representation, or like I was always hungry for that. So I think I
Yeah,
always wanted to recreate it.
that's amazing. So, what do you have up next? Like, is there any projects you're working on now?
Yeah, so actually just before we all went on lockdown in this
Oh,
pandemic, yeah, I had just partnered with our local children's hospital
oh,
to start a monthly program called A Sweet Break with Jasmine. And I was going, well, we already filmed one show live, and they have like this broadcasting studio that broadcasts just within the
mhm.
hospital for their patients. And we just kind of decorate, you know, baked goods together with some of their patients and their patient family members. But now that I can't, you know, all external volunteers are barred from entering the hospital. They still said they'd love to get videos from me, so I'm probably gonna do a lot more digital content, making videos specifically, because up to this point I've just done sort of images with biographies listed. But yeah, it seems like I'm gonna have a lot of videos up in the horizon. So
That's great.
yeah.
So, yeah, have you been baking a lot during the quarantine? Because, like, the
No.
sourdough thing exploded. Everyone's, like,
Right.
losing their shit over it.
Yeah, I
You
did.
haven't been baking.
Yeah, I noticed that overall, because the other thing is, not only am I trying to like push this thing called cookie activism, but I'm really
Mhm.
interested in creating a research-based field of bake therapy. And I noticed that a bunch of people are suddenly baking a lot, like
Oh,
stress
yeah.
baking. Baking sourdough is a lot, like all over my
It's
feed.
everywhere.
Yeah, yeah. And for me, yeah, I ended up resorting back to that, what like got me interested in bake therapy in the first place. And it's funny because I think with these cookies, all I've been doing for the last several years have been cookies only.
Yeah.
But for my stress baking, I made like banana bread and
Nice.
non-sugar cookies, and you know, just something like that I wanted to eat.
You should.
So
I'll
yeah.
send it to you. But we made this hilarious little shareable bingo card for bakers, and I'll
Oh, no
send it to you.
way.
But there's some of them are so funny. It's like tempered chocolate. You know, dreamed of your color coordinated KitchenAid. Have cookie cutters. Like so, I
Right,
think that'll
right.
be. It's so
Oh my
silly.
gosh, yeah, please send that over
Yeah,
to
we had
me.
so
Oh,
much
that's
fun making that.
hilarious.
We've been sharing that around with people. So, but I was
Yeah.
like, as soon as you started saying that, because one is exactly that. It's like bananas for banana bread, because
Yeah,
everyone
yeah.
loses their mind. So, but
Right. Yeah.
so I wanted to share another thing of yours, which I think is very relevant. Can you talk about
Yes. Oh,
these?
thank you so much for bringing that up, actually. So,
Yeah.
I have those cookies with me too. And I was just reflecting back on this because I feel like I made these cookies kind of earlier
Wow, they're so
on.
big.
Yeah, so
Wait,
my
hold them up
portrait
to your
cookies are
face.
typically, yeah, they're,
Yeah. I love how like it's actually the size of your face as you get closer.
yeah, they're not like, oh well, maybe they kind of are big, but yeah, typically my portrait cookies are closer to like 5 to 6 inches or something like that. But I made these actually closer to the beginning of March, and they are portraits that caught my attention of nurses in Wuhan whose faces just you know, had all these scars from the masks that they were wearing all day. And I really wanted to portray them, especially because even toward the beginning of March, I don't think the anti-Asian racism was as, you know, peaked as it is right now. But even at that point, it was starting a lot of xenophobic comments were going around and everything. So I wanted to share these portrait cookies with the message that the same faces that you fear are the faces that are trying to work and help end this as quickly as possible. And you know, now I'm seeing like portraits of nurses in Italy too who have the same types of scars and stuff like that.
Mhm.
This is like just a piece of fondant, but yeah.
Yeah.
So I think I almost want to reshare these again because of how much anti-Asian racism has escalated exponentially
Yeah.
since the beginning of March to now. Um, yeah, it's a really terrible feeling to, yeah, I haven't really gone outside my house because I've been hospitalized with pneumonia before, so I don't identify as immunocompromised, but I'm scared to get
Yeah, you're
this
being
virus. Yeah, but the second layer to not wanting to go out is because I'm scared people are gonna, you know, attack me or, you know, do something that's like racist. And it's a terrible, you know, another layer to have to cope with through
yeah.
something that's already very traumatic collectively for everyone.
Yeah, I definitely feel I'm at my sister's house in Mount Royal, New Jersey, right outside of Philly, and we've gone out a couple times, and I would have to say that I didn't realize how much the racism and all that has affected me, because I went to the post office to mail something, and I was actually mailing something to Korea, so I knew people in the post office kind of knew I was mailing something.
Right.
And the post office woman was a POC, and so I felt comfortable. But I actually did have a white man come up, and he was definitely troubled and came at me very quickly. But my first instinct was that it was going to be like a very racially driven attack,
Right.
and I like could tell that that was definitely a moment of like, oh, this is going on. Like I'm much more aware of what's going on
Right.
racially, because I like immediately like locked up, and I was just like
Right.
really hyper aware. And it's like,
Yeah.
I agree with you. Like I mean, I'm pretty like bullheaded, but like it is definitely made me feel a little bit unsettled being out, you
Right.
know.
Yeah.
So, how's your family? Where are they based?
Yeah, so that's the other thing. I've already been very worried about them too,
Mhm.
because they're in the very vulnerable population. They have underlying health issues, and my dad's like almost 80. My mom's almost 70. So I've been like on them about, please like take this seriously, stay home. But they happen to live in Hawaii, which is demographically, it's like more than half a mix of Asian
Mhm.
ethnicity. So I actually was like feeling thankful the other day that at least in regards to them, that was almost a layer I didn't have to worry about. And I feel it all the time too. Whenever I go to Hawaii, not only is it like a beautiful paradise around
Yeah, no
me,
kidding.
but I like immediately feel like levels of anxiety like go down, because I know that I'm sort of in the majority all of a sudden.
Mhm.
And I just feel a lot more comfortable. But yeah, thankfully my parents are doing okay so far. So
Yeah. Good.
yeah.
Well, speaking of your father, I had the chance to watch some of your TED Talk, and I want to share with some people. I know he had some heart, and maybe you can
Yes.
explain better, but he was a big part of inspiring your activism, correct? In a way?
Yeah, well, kind of, yeah. I definitely felt it more like after the fact, but
Mhm.
it was the point where I thought I was gonna suddenly lose him. Like I know, like in my TED Talk too, I mentioned how I think most people who are on good terms with their parents probably see them as like a superhero figure, and I felt that way even more because my dad is a grandmaster of Taekwondo,
Yes, this is
and
so cool. I'm looking
yeah.
at the picture. I should have like screen grabbed that, because that photo is incredible. Everyone needs to go watch her TED Talk. It's incredible. Uh,
Thank you so much. Yeah.
Grandmaster. What does that
Yeah.
mean?
It just means it's funny. Grandmaster means you're at the highest rank in your field, and his field is Taekwondo, which is also a Korean martial art. And there are a lot of young people who call themselves masters or grandmasters, and my dad likes to say, you can't be a grandmaster when you're too young because you got to be a grandfather first.
Very wise man.
But so he's been doing the martial arts all his life and was so healthy, and then out of nowhere he had to get a quadruple bypass open heart operation. And I just remember that it happened all in a single day, where in the morning I happened to be in Hawaii at that time, and we were gonna go and I was going along with them to get their driver's licenses renewed, but my dad had to get a stress test right before, and we just thought it was routine, it was going to be whatever. But as soon as he took the stress test, they suddenly said, we need to get you into the hospital and connect you to a catheter, I think it was, and do further tests. And I remember that whole experience so vividly, because he was fine, but they made him sit in a wheelchair to go on to the next procedure. And he was like really upset about this, like saying, no, like, oh, I don't have to, I can walk, like, I don't have to be in a wheelchair. But they were like, sorry, sir, you're under our care. And that evening is when he called me and he said, um, you have to write my will. And I was like really shocked. And he just said, I don't have anything in place. At least just write something on paper that everything will go to your mother. And I mentioned he's a grandmaster. At that time, I've done martial arts my entire life. So that's my other life. But I was about to I had just finished teaching the kids at our school because my dad was in the hospital. And then I was about to start our adults class, and that in between is when I got that call. And I just remember like just like really kind of, I don't know, I think I shut down for just a split second, and I was like, okay. And I went into class, and there's like this other side of me came up. It's almost like him like coming inside of me, as you know, like his spirit was like embodied. And I just remember telling all the students then too that life is so short, and that really came to me in such a more personal way. And yeah, I remember from that point, it was a big turning point for me into making sure that I lived my life's purpose, and did everything I could to follow that purpose. And it wouldn't be until several years later still, but from that point on is when I was like, what can I really do that will make me happy and also contribute to the world? And you know, pastries, like I said earlier, was always a passion of mine since high school. So, and then like as far as the activism part, I do like to tell people also how, again, like during my dad's time when he came to America in like the late 60s, early 70s, something like that, I can't remember, but Taekwondo was not as well known, or Korean culture itself was really not as well known. And he was one of the few martial artists who made sure that he didn't call his school a Korean karate school, which was very common back then. He made sure to preserve our, because like, you know, Korea's history includes Japanese colonialism, where they tried to completely wipe out Korean culture. So that's another layer and motivation for why I do what I do. Yeah, sorry, that was kind of long.
Oh, that was perfect. That's like exactly what I want everyone to hear, you know. But so is there anything, last things you want to tell anyone?
I don't know. Yeah. Is it okay if I mention my book real quick?
Oh, please. And I also, please send me the name of that as well.
Yeah. So another thing that I'm hoping to do, you know, or that I've been working on very slowly actually, is a second book. So my first book is Role Models Who Look Like Me. Yeah.
Oh my
And
gosh.
this was actually, it was just perfect timing, where I've always wanted to make a children's book too. And I've been in school for art therapy. And so this, like, making a children's book was one of our final projects actually. So I took it very seriously and like made a book. That's Kalpana Chawla.
Oh my gosh, yeah, we'll definitely be sharing that. That's incredible. Yeah, I saw the cover of your book, and I was like, oh, I need to ask her about that. So I'm so glad.
So I don't know. I do still have a lot actually of personal inventory, but it's available on Amazon. And my next book is going to be cookie art. You know, same sort of concept, where I tell underrepresented stories, but all, of course, with my cookie art instead. So
amazing. Well, we'll get that on the site so everyone can get to it.
Yeah, thank you.
Yes, you're welcome. Well, we're gonna wrap up, but thank you, Jasmine. This was incredible. I'm so glad. It felt so easy, actually. Like we were just having a chat.
Yeah, I know.
I'm, again, just such a big fan. I love what you're doing. I love that you, of course, also Korean Americans like myself. And I think everyone, you know, really has been looking forward to like seeing your work. So
thank you so much. Yes, representation matters.
Yes, always.
Yes.
Okay. Well, I'll see you soon, and we'll.
All right. Thank you so much.
Bye.
All right, bye.